Good evening. We'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It is November the 5th, 2019. Ask the Commission Secretary to call the roll, please.
Greg Michelle.
Here.
Jason Whiteman.
Here.
Ron Haza. Joe Edmond.
Here.
Jeff Wade. Richard Hawk.
Here.
Mike McLaughlin.
Here.
Mario Rios.
Great. And we also have the Assistant City Administrator, Susan Darst, with us. Is that your title, or is it moving to interim? Okay. And folks haven't heard, City Administrator Rick Schroeder has left the city for other opportunities. So Susan is in charge now, as I like to say. We do not have any citizens to be heard, right, Susan? Okay, so we're going to move, we are going to postpone item 4 until Councilman Blue gets here. He is on his way and was delayed slightly, so we're going to turn ahead to item 5 this evening, which is discussion and action on the minutes from our last meeting, which was October the 1st, 2019. You should have received copies of this in the materials you were sent for this meeting. If there are any changes or corrections or edits, please bring those to our attention, or we can have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Joe?
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is to approve the minutes from the October 1 meeting as submitted. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. We're going to move to item 6 tonight, which is discussion and action on a preliminary and final subdivision plat pursuant to Code of Ordinance is Chapter 78, subdivisions establishing the Goodson subdivision, a 1.963 acre tract of land lying in lot 111, block 1, situated in .661 acres in the J.M. Ross Survey, number 223, abstract 645, and 1.302 acres in the Comanche Creek Irrigation Company Survey, number 345, abstract 172, county block 4524 of the official records of Bexar County. I asked this, Susan, Assistant City Administrator, would present this. Is there anything other than what we have before us? Is anybody representing that item before us tonight?
No, these go to our city engineer, Byron Sandifer, and it has been approved by him.
And this is this meant to be residential? Do you know?
No, commercial.
Commercial. I don't remember it. All right, so we will eventually see a conceptual design and
We already did.
I think it's already come before
Yeah,
planning
we've
and
already
zoning.
seen it.
my memory. I believe you, I just don't remember. So the subdivision, the plat's just coming now, they finalized that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments, questions for the city administrator about this, or we can have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
As submitted?
Yes.
All right, so just to read it back officially for the record, the motion is to approve the preliminary and final subdivision plats pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 78, establishing the Goodson subdivision, a 1.963 acre tract lying in lot 111, block 1, situated in .661 acres in the J.M. Ross Survey, number 223, abstract 645, and 1.302 acres in the Comanche Creek Irrigation Survey, Company Survey, number 345, abstract 172, county block 4524, official records of Bexar County. There's no discussion. Jason or anyone else? All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So this is a recommended for approval item that will go to City Council on
Next Thursday.
Thursday, help me with the date here. That'd be the 14th, I believe. Will be up for final approval from City Council. Okay. 14th, yeah. Thank you. All right, item 7 tonight is divided into 2 parts. It's discussion and action on a request by Kyle Holtz for approval of a signage for the Holtz Office Building at 14789 Old Bandera Road. And I'm going to read just Part A for right now. We'll talk about A, and then we can talk about B separately. Part A is monument sign with associated variances. Pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, zoning, Section 72, Old Town Halota Special District, subparagraph G6, B1, commercial signs, single business or multi-tenant shopping center, business park, or office complex monument type. And if you note that Councilman Blue is here now. Would you like to present what we got here? Sir, are you here for that item this evening? Okay, so if we have questions, we'll direct them to you. Very good, thank you.
Okay, so when staff reviews applications, we simply take the code and we go line by line to see if they're compliant. So as far as this sign, which is the monument, the proposed monument sign for the property, as far as size, it's non-compliant with code. The proposed sign is 40 square feet, so it exceeds the proposed, or excuse me, it exceeds the current code by 20 feet, excuse me. Height is also non-compliant. It exceeds code by 3 feet. Number of signs, that's a little tricky. We're taking both requests, although we broke the request into two separate items. The code says one sign for property. The applicant is actually asking for two sets of signs, a monument sign and then a tenant sign. Location is compliant. Design, the staff felt that the submission with the application wasn't clear enough for us to make a recommendation as to whether it was compliant or not. The height of the base is not indicated in the drawing. There's also no landscaping plans provided with the application. Lighting is compliant. The last item of landscaping, we don't know if we can't give a recommendation on whether it's compliant because there were no landscaping plans provided with the application package.
Okay, can you show, can you project the sign in question, the monument sign? This property is in Old Town Helotes. It's next to the Cheetah-Lish,
Yes.
and it's in between the Cheetah-Lish and on the other side, the development with Wine 101, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the proposed sign.
Okay. Hello, Mario. Glad you could be here.
Thank you.
We are on item 7, just starting on
Thank you,
it.
sir.
Okay, so why don't we open it up for questions? We do have the applicant here who can perhaps respond to some of the concerns that have been raised. So let me start by opening it up and see who would like to begin. And sir, I think we're going to have questions. Why don't you come on up to the microphone if you'd be good enough to tell us your name and your business address to get started.
My name is Kyle Holtz, and the property is at 14789 Old Bandera Road.
Okay. So there have been a number of concerns raised about the submission being compliant and whatnot. So there are a number of questions I think we'd like to ask you or to clarify. One I'd like to ask you about is the absence of a landscaping plan, which is required by code, and it's something that we could require for you to do going forward. Make sure there wasn't a particular reason why you did not submit that.
We have worked it out with the judge who has come down to the property and looked at it. And what we have come up with was there will be 24 plants planted across the front of the property between the two. One is the entrance on the left, and one is on the right. It's 100 foot across there, and the ordinance says one plant for every 20 square feet. And we worked it out to 24 plants, and that's what we plan to do.
And that sounds fine, that sounds good.
I hear ya.
That sounds like a positive development and something that would be welcome.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that somehow the city got a grant and they redid the property in front of where I'm at. First of all, you have somewhere around 8 parking spots that are slanted there, and then you have a sidewalk, and then you have trees and bushes that the city planted. And then after you get, then before you get to our property, there's a grassy area.
So I think the question becomes, or the issue becomes, because the code requires you to have landscaping around your signage.
That's what we're doing.
And so we, as a commission, would benefit from seeing what that looks like. And we don't have that with us this evening to be able to
Want a drawing
evaluate.
of it?
Say again?
Do you want a drawing of it? Is that what you're saying?
A drawing, a sketch, whatever would be provided usually by these folks. So that is one issue, and perhaps we could work around that, but let me, Susan, go ahead.
And just to make sure that we're not talking about the plants that you're speaking of that are part of the requirement for the parking lot, this is, the landscape plan that we're talking about for the monument sign is in addition to the parking lot requirement.
It's hard for me to hear you, ma'am. I'm gonna come over close.
The plantings that you're speaking of are part of the parking lot requirement? There's a certain number of vegetations? Okay. What we're speaking of here is the requirements for that sign, so it's actually a different requirement.
Okay.
Just to clarify that for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. Bush is a bush, sign is a sign.
So let me open up to others for questions for right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what about the thought of maybe tabling this to work through what those requirements are to make sure the applicant understands what those are?
So the suggestion is that we postpone action on this item for a month to give you the opportunity to pull together the additional information that would help us evaluate the sign. There are a number of other things,
Evaluate the sign or the landscape?
both.
Oh,
So,
well, you have a,
so let me just clarify, the sign, and I would encourage you to be, if you haven't, to be in dialogue with city staff about this, because right now the sign you're proposing is very large by size and by height, all right? So for us to move forward, it would be helpful to see the totality of what you're proposing, and we don't see that here. Now, this is speaking just of that one sign. We're not talking about the other signs at this point. We're talking just about this one.
are you talking about the sign by the street?
Correct, which we call a monument sign.
All right. Well, the problem that I had the whole thing was, the way that they were talking to me was that if I had a sign by the street,
Whether you had, but,
I'd
okay.
allow a sign on the building.
So they,
And
Yes, go ahead.
if you have a sign on the building, you cannot have a sign by the street.
right. So that is what the code says, and you have requested a variance
Yes?
for that.
Yeah.
Now, put that issue aside for a moment. There's issues with the overall size of this sign. It is roughly twice as large as code allows. It is too tall. There's not a landscaping plan. So there are these issues that I think that would be helpful for you to be in dialogue with city staff and with your sign builder to work out. Just talking about this sign, not the ones on the other building, okay? Okay. Questions, comments, discussion about this one?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would you be able to make your sign a little shorter?
Yeah. I can put it around the ground if you want.
Chairman?
If you don't want it that big.
Well, that's the concern. The way the ordinance is written, it's too tall.
How tall is your sign out front?
Oh, that's a different.
8 feet.
Yeah, but we didn't get the vote
And
on
your,
that.
how
one.
big is your sign out front?
Yeah.
It's,
Well, sir,
according to mine, in comparison to mine, it's more like 2.5 times as big.
So we don't want to mix apples and oranges here.
I didn't hear you.
We don't want to mix apples and oranges. What the city property sign is distinct and different from what yours is. Point taken, though, about the size of the sign. Joe, you had a question?
Yes, I had a question concerning lighting. What kind of lighting do you have planned for this?
LED lights, LEDs.
I mean, are the interior, that sign's got an interior light, is gonna have a Light above it?
Internal illuminated
Internal, okay, okay.
with the lead lights.
Jason?
Just kind of a fundamental concern, and I would sort of second what was echoed about maybe the applicant having a chance to visit with city staff. You know, it's much bigger than what the code allows, you know, twice the size, much taller than the code allows. Almost more to the point, it's much larger than some of the adjacent signs in the adjoining property. And I just think that this is kind of out of scale. And without, you know, considering making this smaller, considering that there's other signs on the building that are being proposed as well, we don't have landscaping. Again, I don't think we have enough information here to kind of put the whole thing together, because there's several, it looks like there's several variances being asked for here, both in multiple signs and size and et cetera. And I think it might be a little bit too much for my taste, or my reading of the code, you know, and concerns about neighboring properties. I think this needs a little more homework to be fully considered.
Other comments, questions on this part A? Yes.
Well, okay, I can wait.
Hold on for, all right. I want to move to the next one unless there's further on this. Stay here, please. Item B, or Part B of this, is the individual tenant wall signs with associated variances pursuant to Code 98, Chapter 98, zoning, Section 72, Old Town Helotes Special District, subparagraph G6B2. Commercial signs projecting wall, hanging, or in or on windows. So this now turns to the issue of, you've requested individual signage for each of the tenants on the property, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and there, is it a total of 5? Okay, one for each, obviously.
Maybe 4. Depends on whether.
Depending how many.
If somebody wants 2,000 square feet, it'd be 4 instead of 5.
Fair enough. Okay. As we begin discussing that part of it, I hope you all found at your, I think we all had copies of this, the set of photographs.
Yeah.
Do you have one down there, Mario? Pass one down to Mario. These are a set of photographs provided by the mayor of the neighboring property, the shops of Old Town, which includes Wine 101 and the Cracked Mug and a few other businesses. And it shows that on that property, going by the regulations at the time, there is a monument or well, it is a monument sign, a wall sign out front, and then the individual tenants, individual businesses within the shops have their wall signage as well. Now, I don't recall the genesis of this in terms of how this came about, what code was at the time, but it's to show that we have a neighboring property which, at the moment, is what this applicant is asking for as well. A monument sign, and then individual signage for each proposed tenant, which you've indicated is 5, 4, depending on what it could be. So with that, let me open it up to questions or comments regarding the wall signage part of this proposal or this request.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are these tenants, are they facing the street?
Yes. But you can't see them very well because I have, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 oak, or 10 oak trees in front of them.
All right.
If you look at the plot of the property, you'll see that there's round concrete, or not concrete, stone stationary planter out front that's about, I don't know, 15 foot by 30 foot, then it has about 8 oaks in it. And over to the right, there's 3 more of them. And then in the middle, there's another one, a larger oak tree. So it's hard to see the front of the building where the signs are to be put. But you have to have some sort of identification.
Yeah.
These are businesses, they are not individual people.
Yes.
Susan, would you, oh, thank you. I was going to also direct people's attention toward the back of the proposal where there is a drawing, a diagram of the building with the proposed signage.
It's towards Ford's, I think.
Can't tell where we're going here.
Turn. Turn.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Put on the brakes.
One more. There,
Okay, now I'm turning. No.
yeah,
Yes?
right there.
So this is the property to the right
Property.
is
There's
Cheetah-ish, to the left is
Oak
the
trees on
shops.
the left is the one they're talking about, and if you scroll to your right, to that right there, you
Okay.
see, they're back in the street now. You can see it on the right-hand side there, that's where the round place where the oak trees are at.
And the building, the proposed building will be set back on that property facing, with the businesses
Building
facing the
is,
street.
the building is like 94 feet back.
The building's basically where the car is.
It's like right there.
Back in there.
Yeah, behind the row of trees where that car is. yeah.
Questions, comments, others with remarks about this part of the proposal?
Chairman, looking at the other information we got, those signs above each unit seem to comply with the neighbors.
See, and what do you mean by that?
Well, like the Wine 101 subdivision, everybody gets a sign above their business door.
Right, so this is, to be clear, this request is compliant fully with the code, except for having more than one, so monument walls. But otherwise,
The sign on the
otherwise, it's
building
fine.
meets your requirements, it's less than 20 square feet.
Right.
But the problem being is, what you're talking about doing here is either allowing a sign on the street, nothing on a building, something on the building, nothing at the street.
Correct, that's what the code is.
That's the reason why the two of them are there. It's not really a variance that I'm asking for the signage on the building. It's the fact that you're saying one or the other, not both.
Correct. Which is what necessitates the variance, to be clear. Thoughts, questions about this?
I have a question. You know, I'm a little confused. You know, next to Dairy Queen, little shopping center there, they have a monument sign, and they have signs on the building.
That's different zoning area.
Right.
All right, I know, just,
Old Town is different.
Different.
Old Town is distinct, it's a carve-out.
did we recently change it? That's why Wine 101 has their monument and signs?
I was just wondering, how did we get there?
I'm sorry, I can't speak to that.
Is that, is
Do you
something-
remember?
isn't that under the
Councilman
creative-
Blue, do you recall? You were probably on this body at the
isn't that under
time.
the creative
I didn't
sign
hear you.
ordinance in that area?
We're asking Councilman Blue, just for some clarification here.
Maybe,
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The zoning code for Old Town has been that way for quite some time. In fact, that's exactly why you see in the pictures, you see the two posts with the directional signs, because those are not actually monument signs per our code, they're directional signs.
wayfinding.
And they're wayfinding signs, which is different. And then city council a few years ago, because so many of the businesses in Old Town do not even front Old Bandera Road, they allowed that large wall with individual signs on it as an exception to the code. But that's because it was advertising a lot of businesses that had absolutely no visibility. They were on the back and the sides of buildings, et cetera. The difference here between this area and the other code is exactly what was mentioned, and that is that you're dealing with a code that allows one or the other, but not both. What you see in the example on the printouts is wayfinding signs, not a monument sign, and that's why it was different that way.
One of the things, one of the questions I have, and Mike, did you have a question? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I gotta think about it.
One of the questions I had about the wall signage, and Susan, maybe you could help me on this one, is we don't actually have a rendering of the sign itself. So that does, again, you've told us that you wish for the wall signs for the tenants to be lit,
Yeah.
but you've not provided a actual drawing of what these signs will
You have
look
to
like.
listen before he can give you a sign.
Say again?
You have to listen before you can give somebody a sign. Is it gonna be AB pest control, or is it gonna be Mom's Tacos.
Well, you do the concept.
You know what I mean? There's-
Right.
If there's not a tenant, I can't give you a sign that says their name. Now, on the drawing that I submitted, and which you all approved, you have a shot of the building, and it clearly shows on the drawing that you have, above each space, there's a word up there, and all it says is tenant.
Right.
That's what it says on the drawing, which I submitted in the blueprints to the city before I ever built.
And we have that.
Yeah, and the sign is less than 20 square feet. I don't know what the problem is.
Right. So the question will become, in terms of the design, what happens if the tenant comes in and will they need to come back here, Susan, for approval of the specific sign? That would be the key. Okay. I think the only concern I have, I'm sorry, that I noticed in here is you asked for it to be a lit sign. And I'd ask the commission to think about whether we want, what the commission's preference is on having a wall sign to be internally illuminated as proposed. And I just put that out there for the group to consider. Other comments, questions?
This is similar, like the strip center next to Walmart. When they presented it to us, that's all they did. They showed us
Fair enough.
this because they didn't know who was coming.
So we're setting the parameters for it, so we'll get the folks to come back.
Right.
But the individual tenants, right,
This is not a sign plan, this was a site plan.
Right.
That does not constitute a sign, that was part of the site plan for the property. The strip center and these other places had a master sign plan that said each square footage will allow for this amount of sign, and they also designated the size requirement and also the lighting requirements, specified full cutoff, it did all the other code requirements. It's a very different prospect.
I see where this is going, I see the point, I get it, but there's so many unknowns for us to look at tonight. Site plan, master sign plan, what is it we're approving? I see the pictures, I got it, but I'm not sure what gives me that path to either deny or approve it specifically.
Thought.
Mario or Richard, anything?
I'd like to just
Go ahead.
echo what Commissioner Mike and Jason have said. I mean, we don't have enough of the facts complete. We need to be 100% to make these kinds of decisions, especially when we're working with the area. I mean, all of Helotes is important, but Old Town is, we need to be mindful towards what's happening over there. And so I think that once we have everything on the table, and I definitely appreciate the gentleman coming in and putting the good effort to get this business taken care of, I admire that, but I think we just need to get all the cards on the table. I think tabling this item and having him work with the staff would be the most prudent way to go from here.
Go back this way, Ron.
Chairman, the big question is, would we allow to have two signs? The wall signs and a monument sign? If the monument sign was smaller, that's the big question. It's not really what he has on the building, what they're gonna look like, it's will we allow a monument sign with wall signs?
That's probably the biggest question.
Yeah, because all the other little details can be worked out.
Well, those details are quite important, though. So let's not lose sight of that. But point taken, that does the commission have a perspective, whether we ask the applicant to return with fuller plans, fuller details for us? We can certainly offer guidance here on how we would proceed. What is the sentiment of the group? And I don't know that we formally need to take a vote on that. It's not actually an item for us tonight on that particular question.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, so what would be the thought? I'm just throwing it out there. This is just to get something going. What about the same concept as next door, where you have the long monument and you have the small sign? At least you have a theme, more or less, in the area. Lacking anything else?
Hang on one second, sir.
The sign that you're talking about are the little informational signs that says Sally's Beauty Parlor is that way.
We're not talking about that.
I'm talking about the big long wall, the masonry wall.
Yeah, or something like,
Masonry wall.
or something like it.
Where is that wall at?
This one, sir.
If we're gonna give ideas or something, why don't we make it consistent at least?
Where's that, down the road towards
It's right next door to you.
the ice house?
That's directly next door to you.
Where the wine shop is at?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, instead of wasting a lot of time, what size sign are you going to, in your perimeters, allow as a pole sign?
So according to code, for the monument sign out front, it would need to be half as tall as it is currently proposed. Excuse me, the area would be half this
20
area.
square feet, is that
Correct.
what they're talking
It's
about?
20, correct, Susan?
Yes, sir.
And the height would be 5 feet instead of 8 or 10.
5 feet high?
Right. We need a
There's no sense
landscaping
me doing a
plan.
drawing if it's not within the perimeters of what you would allow.
And so that's the reason why I think that some of us up here think the best approach is for you to work with city staff to make sure that what comes forward is something that is in line with what the group can do. I think we all want to get to the same point where you get the signs to promote this development, but without having that in front of us, it is very difficult to make a determination. So, does somebody wish to make a motion to postpone?
Before you do that.
Yes.
Okay, are you making any kind of decision this evening on whether there is going to be, let's say the sign was smaller out front, whether you're going to allow a sign on the street and one on the building? Because I have people who I'm talking to about trying to lease a space,
Correct.
and they're interested to know, do I get a sign? Can I have a sign? Now, if they can't have a sign, they have no interest in paying $2,000 a month for a space.
So the way I can answer that for you is, first off, whatever decision this group makes, whenever it makes it, this commission makes a recommendation to city council. City council will make the final determination, okay? I think that you will find, and I'm not trying to be evasive here, I'm trying to be very transparent for you, is that if you bring back a proposal that is fleshed out and showing all the details and more directly conforms to what the code is, I think you'll find that this group in particular is flexible, open-minded, and wanting to work with you. So without giving you a direct answer, because I can't speak for the group, and we're not going on record, there's no vote on that here for it tonight, I think you will find that we wish to accommodate you and help you achieve what you wish to achieve. But even if we do that, even if we do X, Y, and Z, which is exactly what you requested, please remember that this is a recommendation that we make that goes to city council, and city council is well within its purview to alter it, change it, reject it, and whatnot, okay? So we recommend, as planning and zoning, city council approves. But I go back to the point that I think several of us up here have made in the discussion, is more detail will help us better evaluate this and better be able to help you achieve what you wish to achieve. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mike?
I move that we table this item pending further detail in the applicant's submission.
I'll second it.
There's a second here. Is there discussion of the motion?
I think we, like the chairman, I want to give you every opportunity, so we're not approving anything, we're not turning down anything. We're holding on to it until you come back with more detail, and we'll go from there. Like the chairman said, we want to help you. So that
Do you
this
have
is-
any parameters which I should strive to?
So I would encourage you to work with city staff who can very clearly sit down and outline what those parameters are according to code. And I would reiterate what others up here have said, is that this has a lot of merit to it. We just want to get it to the point where it conforms as much as possible to what we have. I think that we can get there. I think it just needs a little bit more time, a little more detail to get you what you want. So other discussion, thank you for your time.
Okay. I'd like to say something before I.
Well, actually, we're not at the moment, we're about to take a vote, so I need to ask you to hang on. So the motion is to table or postpone this item, which is discussion and action on a request by Kyle Holtz for approval of signage for Holtz Office Building at 14789 Old Bandera Road, including monument sign with associated variances and individual tenant wall signs with associated variances, both pursuant to Code Chapter 98 zoning, Section 72 Old Town Helotes Special District, subparagraphs G6B1 and 2. All in favor of the, yep,
One quick add. My intent for tabling it is so you don't have to have another submission and another fees and everything. My intent is to continue.
right,
what
that's
we have.
understood.
Okay.
Understood. All in favor of the motion,
Could
please
I have
signal
one
aye.
question? One
Aye.
question.
Opposed?
No, one question.
We're done.
Can't
Put it through.
make a question?
No,
Can
we're
I-
already just voted
Okay.
on it. All right, so at that, I'm going to ask you to hold on until we finish the meeting, then you can certainly talk to others about this. I need to ask Councilman Blue to come up here to do his liaison report.
Yeah, but
Thank you,
have
sir,
a
for
time
being
in
here.
that motion, hold it how long?
That was me?
Yep,
30 days?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry I was late. It took me 55 minutes to get through traffic from Hebner and Fredericksburg to here.
We were on that same road, sir.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So as you can see from your agenda item number 4, there were 2 items that previously came before planning and zoning that have went to city council. The Mr. W. fireworks sign, that is the enclosed building down there off of Shanefield Road, just outside of 1604. That was approved exactly as planning and zoning approved it and recommended to city council. The second item was the request by Raul Torre, Novatora American LLC for the residential sign. That was the small subdivision within a subdivision within the Wild Horse area, and it was approved exactly as presented. I think, as I recall, there were some questions with regard to lighting that came out of planning and zoning. They were clarified, and there will be some landscape lighting and such, and everything was extremely well done, and they were appreciated for their hard work. Everything was approved exactly as planning and zoning forwarded it.
same thing here, if you all recall, that residential entry sign was well done. Jason?
Just a brief question about that. So the Mr. W. fireworks, my only misgiving about that one was the white, but it was a giant white building, and so it was like, well, it's, damage is already done, but I just wondered, what was it, do we know, how did the white building get by us, or what was the history of that, do we know?
Well, I don't know that in either in this, I don't recall in planning and zoning or at council, the issue of the color of the building itself was actually really addressed or expressed as a detail of concern.
Well, I just meant more when the building itself was approved, a white building.
Well,
It
Was
may
that-
not
did
have
that
been, it
predate-
may have been annexed.
right,
Yeah,
it's
the-
ETJ.
It is in the ETJ, so site plan, building,
Yeah.
all of that is absolutely something we can never even consider. The only thing we're able to consider in the ETJ about that entire property is the sign,
Yeah.
not the building upon it which it sits. And so that's why we really didn't have an alternative to do anything with it, is because it was just a sign only.
Yeah.
And we're gonna run into probably a lot more of that moving forward, where we can have things that are going on in the ETJ. We can see all of what goes on, we can know what business is, but we can't say a word about it. All we can do is judge whether their sign does or doesn't comply. And that's maybe frustrating, but that's part of our regulation.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. Ron,
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to adjourn?
is there a second? Michael, all in favor of adjourning, please signal aye. Aye. Opposed, we stand adjourned at 7:40.